you and the word back of us. This is spooky poking me in the ribs. There's an elbow in my ear. There's a smell your bones that next to me. I'm showered in here. Well, I think I'm missing a contact lens. I think my wallet's gone. I think this bus is stopping again. Like a more freaks me out. Wow, no one back of us. No one back of us. Man, look, I'm fun. I'm fun. No one back of us. Hey, go sit by you. No one back of us. Hey. Yeah. Number one man the bus. Number one man the bus. Ow. Number one man the bus. Hey, hey. Number one man the bus. Hey, 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 oh, there's another in the van and broke and my face is turning blue. I haven't been in a crowd like this since waiting to see a Hooo. Well, I should have got off a long ago. Good thing get through the door. There's a little room for me to breathe. And I'm gonna think I'm going in. Number one man the bus. Number one man the bus. Man, another comes on and another comes on. Another one man the bus. And you'll sit by now. Another one man the bus.
Hi, YouTube fans. This is Matt of Post April 6th YouTube channel. I thought I would play some really amusing, funny, and very interesting and quite entertaining introductory music before I started this vlog. Well, today, after spending at least 45 minutes, or at least it felt like 45 minutes anyway, of creating this story idea, and I haven't typed it up, I've just done some writing by hand. Yeah, there's my messy handwriting. I thought I would go ahead and do a story idea and read as much as I can. Stuff that comes from here, from my mind. So, what the story is about, let's start with his name, is a guy with 3 Ds. Dirk Donovan Drakemen. That's his full name. Again, it's Dirk Donovan Drakemen. The date of birth, the day he was born, was January 21st, 1971. His place of birth was, and this place exists. I just found this out in doing a Google search, and after I found out about this town name, I thought, oh yes, this town does exist. It is not New England part of the United States. It's New England, North Dakota. And it's downstate, it's down here instead of way up there towards Canada. It's in I think it's pronounced Hettinger, or Hettinger County, North Dakota, which is, again, down here instead of up there. And here's his life history of residency. He lived in New England, North Dakota between 1971 and 1984. And his parents got quite sick of North Dakota. And the economy out there was probably taking a deep dive. And the parents had saved up enough money, and they knew of a certain area in Colorado that was at least 70 miles away from Denver, called Fort Collins. And they moved there, you know, the mom and the dad. And in 1984, they moved to Fort Collins. And the dad probably got a good job working with farming, or he worked. He did something that was industrial related. And so, anyways, Dirk himself lived there from 1984 to 1989, and you see, in 1989, he was 18 years old, and he saved up a few bucks, and he moved to Denver, Colorado. So in Denver, Colorado, in 1989, he moved to Denver. He lived at 3 different residential places. He was roommates with somebody for about 5 to 6 months, and then he found his own apartment. And then he moved again to a different, further in the southeast instead of closer to downtown. Because I think that area of downtown, parts of it were getting pretty bad. You know, a lot of violence, a lot of gangbangers, druggies, rapists, sick kooks, and people walking up and down the street, you know, just talking to themselves and being cuckoos. I mean, I know that I have memories of that from personal experience. Yeah, after 8 o'clock at night, there were certain parts of Denver that I stayed away from, and I didn't go there unless I absolutely had to, and I just really watched it while I was walking around there. Okay, so back to Dirk Drakemen. Job history. He worked for a feed supply store in Fort Collins between 1988 and 1989. And he moved to Denver, and he got accepted after applying for about 5 or 6 different jobs, and was living with a roommate. Between 1989 and 1991, he was a security officer for Denver Public Schools. Or no, excuse me, Denver Public Library. He worked at 2 different locations. In 1991, he became a parking attendant at a federal judicial building. You know, that's where the federal courtrooms were in downtown Denver. I don't remember exactly where this was verbatim, but it would be probably somewhere between 17th and 18th Avenue. Far from the area between Colfax and Broadway. It'd be over that way instead of over that way, you know, south of the heart of downtown. And date of story and time frame. February 7th until Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day was the day he must get on the airplane and fly back to good old Denver, Colorado. And about a little more than 24 hours later, he had to report for work early at 7:30 in the morning to work at the federal judicial building. Okay, Drake, or DD, as some people call him, DD Drakemen, leaves his apartment located on the 800 block of South Quebec Let me pause for a minute. The area that I'm referring to, because I don't want to say 825, 835, because I could wind up having a legal injunction filed against me if I do that, or legal action filed against me for doing that. It is right across the street from a cemetery. I believe the cemetery is named Fairmont. Yes. Okay. And he left the. He was supposed to catch a 6:10 p.m. or 6:14 p.m. bus, the Route 73 that was heading north to, not DIA, because DIA was only talking about being built at the time. It was Stapleton Airport. It was a few blocks east of East 35th and East 35th Avenue and North Quebec Street. Yeah. Okay, so let me get back to the story. And so in other words, it was to catch a red-eye flight to Los Angeles LAX airport. Okay, let me stop reading again. The reason why he went to LAX, Los Angeles, California, were for three reasons. One, he'd never, ever, ever been there. Two, the one part of California he had been to, about when he was 10 years old, was far away from Los Angeles. It was a more suburban area in East Bay. It wasn't Carmel, it wasn't San Francisco, it wasn't Emeryville, it wasn't Daly, it wasn't Union, Union, California, Northern California. It was somewhere a little further inland. Where that would be, off the top of my head, I just can't think of a name of the place. It might have been Gilroy, come to think of it. Maybe. Okay, so back to the story. Well, okay. Oh, here's another thing. The other reason why he wanted to go there was he wanted to tour around Hollywood, Los Angeles. And he wasn't looking for movie stars. He wasn't looking for being able to see the event at Grauman Chinese Theater, where a new movie was going to be released and there was going to be a big ceremony there. He wasn't going to do the Academy Awards or any of that business. He just wanted to walk around and he just wanted to see the buildings and visit a few museums and buy a few souvenirs at some of the retail stores. Okay, let me get back to reading. Okay, and he was to go on a 7-day vacation to LA and stay at a CALI-INN hotel, because let me stop reading again. CALI-INN, I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, or there was a name similar to that. Those places actually exist, or at least they did, unless they've shut down and they've changed their names, which could have happened. There was a Clarion Inn I stayed at on, I think the street name was Desselford and Avalon in Carson, California, right across the street from South Bay Mall. It was called that back then in 2009 when I went out there. But nowadays, and I kid you not, I've verified this several times, it is a Motel 6. Yep. And, okay, let me keep reading. After the okay, so at a CALI-INN, 1.31 miles from the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And he would be using, because see, he'd activated and turned this thing on, but he really didn't use it very much because he wanted to use his landline, and he only wanted to use his cell phone for certain things. Okay. And use a Nokia 101 cellular phone, because this thing was a fairly thick bar phone that was roughly about this big, and it had a nice thin antenna that you could adjust your way, because back then the way the technology was, that was not the way it is now, which is digital cell phone technology, and back then it was analog. Okay, and it says that he had gotten as a gift in Christmas of 1991 from the company that he worked for. But the drawback of this particular night was that the Route 73 bus was running 12 minutes late. And that could put Dirk in an embarrassing bind with Stapleton International Airport, and America West Airlines may have to decline his checking in. So here's what happens. After minute 11, he looks at his watch, and he takes out the schedule, the paper schedule, and he looks at it again, and he's like, well, I'm going to think about this for a few more minutes before I decide to do it. What that means is what he was thinking in his mind. He wasn't talking to himself. He was just thinking to himself and talking to himself subconsciously. He was thinking about calling Stapleton Airport and ask them to, put some type of notation in his profile or roster, so that he would not be turned away. Okay. So he gets in, and he's grabbing a big suitcase that was fairly thick. It was probably at least this thick, and it was about a couple feet tall, at least 18 inches wide, or a little over 2 feet wide, something like that. And he also had a duffel bag strapped around this way, with one of those longer straps connected to the duffel bag, because that was going to be the carry-on, and the luggage was going to be somebody checked in, and was going to checked in luggage that was going to be in the cargo section of the airplane. Okay. So he thinks about it for about 10 minutes. And when he gets near Colfax, or past it, something to that effect, he calls Stapleton. He then gets transferred to the American West, I think it would be called Customer Service Center or Atrium. Okay, I'm back. I had to go get some purified drinking water because my throat was starting to feel dry. And I know I've mentioned this before, it's the side effects of this tracheotomy. Okay, now back to the story. So, after he talks with the people at the customer service check-in department, or division. The lady said, okay, the rules are that you must show up 48 minutes before your flight takes off. But due to the fact that the RTD has been running a little bit late for a variety of reasons, if you feel that you cannot get to the section of the airport that would be the America West Airlines designated section, you must call us at least 10 minutes before the 48-minute deadline and let us know, because if you do not, if you get there 47 minutes before the flight is supposed to take off, we're not going to be allowed to check you in, and you're going to have to wait for a later flight. He says, okay, thank you, and then he hangs up the phone, and he just keeps looking at his watch every 2 minutes. He just keeps looking and looking and looking, and he's looking out at what's going on up ahead, so he can try to anticipate if there's a traffic jam or something that would be an interference that would cause him to be late. And okay, so the bus would probably supposed to be there by 6:10, at his stop, and it shows up at 6:22. So he shows up at Stapleton Airport at the spot at the section that is for public transportation and other type of ground transportation only. They can't go any further than that, because otherwise, job performance-wise, they're committing a pretty serious offense. Oh yeah, they're going to get really heavily reprimanded, or they're going to get written up, or they're going to be they're going to get suspended, or even worse than that, by RTD Transit, and they're going to get a very serious verbal warning from one of the traffic control associates of Stapleton International Airport. Okay, just a second. Okay, after he very, very carefully thought about this over and over and over again, he must be at the section for American Airline, America West Airlines check-in by no later than 7:15. Because if he don't, he's really stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he's going to really feel like crap. So he keeps looking at the watch, and when they get close to 35th, the time on his watch would be roughly 6:48. No, I stand corrected. That's not quite right. Okay, 6:53. It would be, and he'd be in the area where he's a few blocks up on 35th, and he's almost thinking, oh, I got it made. I'm gonna make it. And then he said, don't be so sure. So, another 8 minutes of traveling go. And hold on a second. Let me determine this again. Okay, he realizes that by 7:57 or 7:58, if he's at the stop, he's probably going to make it. But he better hustle. He better not walk casually. He better walk as fast as he can so he's not running. At about 7:57, he gets to the stop, and somebody lets him go ahead of him. Because there's at least 6 different passengers behind him, and he gets off, and then he asks a guy who's in a Stapleton Airport uniform. I think what would be called a sky cap, like a person that would handle luggage, or like a luggage handler, whatever. And he tells him, and he points out how he points up. He says, go up that elevator and go up. He says, go up. He says, go to that elevator, go up here to the first one, and then it's over that way. From between 7:57 and okay, that's where I got scrambled again. It's not 7:57, it's 6:57. Duh! Sorry about that. Oh, brother. Okay, so from between 6:57 and it takes between 7:57 and about 7:05 to get over to the door. And he knows that, he better not move too fast, and he better watch where he's going, because otherwise, if he gets in somebody's way, somebody could really raise hell, and he looks totally like the bad guy instead of like, it was both their fault or whatever. Someone would think that would be not as consequential. And he gets over to American Airlines. He opens up his duffel bag. He takes out the plane ticket and the paperwork. He gets out his driver's license out of his wallet. Okay, let me mention something else before I talk about the process he goes through to get checked in. He is an experienced driver, and the car that he has to get from A to B, from his apartment to work or his apartment to run any other personal errands, whatever, would be probably a Ford Fiesta that would likely be made between 1985 and 1987. Now, maybe they weren't making those back then, between 85 and 87. But the best guess I can make is I think that's about what he would have as a car. But he didn't take it with him, because how are you going to take it with you in an airplane when you're not going to personally drive it out to California, and you're flying out there? Don't make any sense. Not possible, right? Right. Okay. So he gets checked in. He gets his luggage turned in, and he's got the tag on there. And they double check his information, and they said, "Sir, you do have a rental with Avis, right?" And he says, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, they overcharged you." He says, "Hold on a minute." And then the lady talks to her supervisor. The supervisor calls back, and then the supervisor has her type in a certain code that's a combination of letters to numbers. And she says, "Okay, you've been issued a $15 refund. And it will be, I think back then it would be about $35 a day, and instead of like what it was in the early 80s. I mean, that's the best guess I can personally make. So, everything's a done deal, good to go. He goes over to where he's supposed to go, because this was pre Homeland Security TSA screening. And the thing that he does is more as a precaution, because they were more lax back then. He takes off the belt. He empties everything out of his pockets. He zips open the thing, and he takes a couple of things that he thinks might be confiscated, and he puts it out. He puts it in that big tote thing. Tote tray, and then he goes through, and he goes beep, and they go beep, 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 and they said, "Sir, would you please step over here?" And they take out another device, and they go, and it says, "Lift up both your feet." He did, and then they go. I mean, this is the best sound effects I can make. And they said, "Huh? You don't have anything on you that you're not supposed to. It might." And he says, and they said, "Can you?" He says, "Can you go like this and just open up the zipper a little bit?" And they go, "Eep." And they're like, and they take him over there, and they said, "Okay, you don't need to pull down your pants. Just unzip the pants." He's like, "Okay." And he shows everything, and then they check him again this way, and inside the clothes and outside, and it's the zipper. Yeah, and they said, "Well, sir, we're really sorry that we've had to do this to you." And he says, we're going to do something to make up for it. Can you stand right here? He says, once you've zipped up your pants, can you stand right over there, just to the left? We're going to give you something. They give him a $10 Visa gift card. Yeah. Because I think even back then, and it says $10 on it, and on the back it's probably well, I better not say the name of the banks, but let's put it this way. It was one of the big three banks, one of the three most popular banks that were most popular nationwide. Okay, so he takes everything out. He puts everything in his pocket. He puts the things he took out of the duffel bag back in the duffel bag, and he doesn't have to put on his shoes because they're already on. He doesn't have to take them off. No, wait, I take it back. He did take his shoes off. Never mind, I'm sorry. He puts the shoes back on. And he asks where to go to get to concourse. I think it's concourse E. Because see, I looked this up before I did this vlog. It's concourse E. And I think the way they did things back then versus the way DIA does things. I think what he did was he went over to, he didn't go down an escalator, but he went a little bit over this way or this way. And there's a special, it's kind of like a golf cart with a long thing where there's at least 20 seats. And, you know, first they go to A, then they go to B, then they go to C, then they go to D, and he's only one of like 2 other people after this. And he said, and the driver says, "You're all 3 of you are going to Concourse C," and they say in unison, "Yes," simultaneously. They get to E, and he asked the driver where America West, I think would be something like E11 is, and he points to where it is. And the good thing is right over there, there's a real nice steak and burger type restaurant. And he's hungry. And he looks at his watch. And he thought, I better go check with E11 so everything's on the up and up and I don't show up too late. Okay, so he has 27 minutes to go into the steak and burger restaurant. And he buys a cheeseburger with bacon, avocado, and so I think it's like either caramelized onions or especially sauteed onions. And instead of a French fries or onion rings, he has a baked potato. Yep. And he gets finished, almost finished. He just has about 3 more bites left. And he makes sure to drink some light roast coffee that has a little bit of a caramel flavor to it or something like that. Or caramel, whatever. And he after he's bitten the second to last bite, he can hear over the intercom about how group 1 through 5, because he's like 3, or no, group 1 through 3, please prepare to, please stand in line to board the airplane. So he hurriedly finishes up. He takes a big, he drinks down the coffee. He grabs a duffel bag. He goes walking over there fast. And he stands in line. And he reaches into his duffel bag and he takes out the ticket. And the guy who does the double checks him, and they make a little mark with either a pen or a highlighter. And then he says, and then she says over the PA, "Would group 1 please start to board through the boarding dock tunnel, or whatever it is." And then group 1 goes through. and there's about 2 minutes. Would group number 2 please go through the boarding tunnel? They go through. Out of group 3, there's only 4 people. And then the lady says, would group 4 please walk through the tunnel, the boarding tunnel? They go all the way in, and they and each person, and there's a stewardess, checking everything, or a co-pilot checking everything, because that's customary. They're not doing it just because they're looking to bust somebody. That's their job. They have to do it. And what happens is even though they don't contest that he is boarding the airplane, because I think what they do is it's like a clipboard where they look at the report of the roster of who's doing what, or of the name of the people. He says, "Sir, I need to go check the seats, and I'll be right back." So he checks the seats, and he says, there was a mix-up, and you were supposed to be on seat 19A, but we want you over here on 19D. And he says, so is that one close to the window? He says, yes. Are you okay with that? Because if not, we're going to have to look at the roster and find some other spot for you. And he says, no. That'd be perfect. He says, very good, sir. Follow me. And they take him to where, and they show him. He points right at 19D where it is. When they come to that particular area, he puts his thing up on top of the thing on top. He sits down. He looks through some of the things in front of him, and boy, he's really got to go to the bathroom, because he's really got to pee bad all of a sudden. So he says, stewardess, may I? It's a lady. He says, may I use that restroom, or may I use that lavatory? He says, yes, sure, go ahead. He says, check the door before you go in, but other than that, that's fine. And he does. It's not occupied. It's vacant. And then he goes in there, and he really pees like a racehorse. I mean, I don't like to talk that way in a YouTube blog, but hey, it happens to the very best of people, even the most well-mannered. It's part of life. And then after that, he goes in over to the back to the seat, and then they do the instruction where they show how to put on the mask, and how to adjust the seat belt, and all the other things that they must do, looking really stylish and presentable. And then he feels the plane take off. And when he gets up in the air, oh brother, he doesn't feel sick, but he's well, all the proteins in that burger has made him have an urgent call to nature, because he's really got to sit down and, and when and I mean, he's really sitting there fidgeting, because he's like, he's really got to go. And the one person that's supposed to be next to him didn't show up. They canceled at the last minute. Funny how the world can be sometimes, huh? So when the light goes off, I mean, he unbuckles fast, and and he tries not to walk too fast, but whew, he goes in there and woo! He really gets some pretty good relief. And then he comes back, and the and the stewardess is like, psh, psh, because I mean he really let out a stinker. And he goes and he sits down, and the stewardess comes forward, and she has this rollaway cart, and she says, "Sir, we are we're going to give you some nice a choice of nuts and a soft drink." And he chooses some macadamia nuts, and he chooses some 7-Up. That's in one of those mini bottles that only you can find at the on an airline. And she says, and then a couple of minutes later, as he's going on the macadamia nuts, because he hadn't had one of those in a couple of years, they really taste good. He said, there's a steward, airline steward coming forward, and he says, he says, we're giving away some free paperbacks. He says, here are 4 different ones. Would you like one of these? What one of them happens to be, I don't oh yes, I do remember. It's an oldie. It was a book written by Lawrence Block called The Burglar Who Quoted Kipling. I have personally heard I think it might be abridged audio book of that. I didn't read it, but I checked it out in the library, and it's really interesting. So he's really reading away on this thing. I mean, he's really into it. And then the America West comes forward, and there is a fruit bar, and there's also an ice cream sandwich. And he chooses the ice cream sandwich because for some reason he's got the munchies. And he's thinking in his mind, even though he's heavily concentrating on the book, about all the fun things he's going to be able to do in Los Angeles. Okay, so then what happens is they start making an announcement that everybody should have their seatbelt on, because within 25 minutes they're going to land the plane in LAX, and he can tell by the way the sounds that the airplane's moving, and he can feel it going. Like that. Because you don't just go, no. You got to go down step, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower. There's a specific way you do it, because you don't just get near LAX and go, that'll crash the airplane. And if it don't crash the airplane, it's going to damage it, and some people are going to get hurt. And if they don't get hurt, they could get very dizzy and go "Bleh," like that. They'll start vomiting, or I don't like to talk about people like this. Men or women will lose control of their bladder, or something else I don't want to talk about. And then as they get closer and closer and closer, because you see, the time that it takes to get from Stapleton Airport to LAX is 2 hours and 40 minutes. And they, as they get closer and closer and closer, and he looks over that way, and he can all of a sudden hear this, and hear this, you know, because they're going to land the thing just right, so they don't make the tires smoke and cause damage to the wheels and to the brake system and all the stuff that would be the equivalent of automobile shocks and, you know, those springs that go over the shocks and whatnot. And the time of night that they land, seeing how they left DIA as Stapleton Airport at 8:15 at night, was 11:20 Mountain States time and 10:20 Pacific Standard Time. Yes. And after the plane lands, you know, because he's got his coat on, because I did a archived research on what the weather was that day, but the information I got, they were vague about what it really meant during that time frame. It was hard to determine. So when he gets on the airplane, or excuse me, before he gets on the airplane, when he gets on the ride, he's got a fairly heavy coat, because it was highly likely that the temperature was somewhere between 45 degrees or 36 degrees Fahrenheit. And if there was a little bit of a wind, that, you know, with that nighttime sky, it's colder than it's going to be. It's going to feel colder than the daytime. Yeah. And when he gets through the tunnel, or the path, whatever they call it, he gets advised on where the airplane is, and he gets on his cell phone, and he calls CALI-INN and tells them that he's arrived at the airport, and they advise him where to go to get. I think the service would be either Dash Airport Shuttle or Flyaway. And what he does is, once he gets his luggage, he goes to a certain part of LAX, and you know he's thinking before he goes out the exit door that will go to the ground transportation area, or the zone. That would be ground transportation, you know, to catch ground transportation rides. He's thinking that it's going to be warm. It's not. It is cold. It's 47 degrees, but it's a bit windy, and it feels more like 33. Oh yeah. and it's not icy outside, but he can tell it had a little bit of what would be called drizzle rain. Yeah. And he catches the flyaway, or the dash ride, and he keeps on that thing until he gets to, I would think it would be about 2-3 miles away. I think it might be something like Laurel Canyon area of Los Angeles. Not Benedict Canyon, Laurel Canyon. And then he gets off that, and he calls MTA, and they tell him where to go. You know, because there's a stop number on there. Well, 5 digits or 4 or 6 digits, somewhere between 4 and 6 digits. He goes and he waits there, and he has a transfer in his hand. And he gets on the thing, and the driver says to him, "Yo, sir, could you please put your luggage up here?" And he says, "Okay." And he said, "Yeah, I know you don't normally ride that, but in the future, ask one of us, and we'll put it in a special storage compartment we have over there." Because he's talking about the area that would be towards the back, to the side of where the engine would go, where the engine is. So he puts it way up on top, and he takes that to I believe it might be a street called Feliz or Orange, or possibly Gramercy Place or De Longpre, something like that. And this area is about 3 city blocks from CALI-INN. And he calls the hotel, and he tells him where he is, and he says, "Okay." He says, "Go straight." He goes straight down to this until you get to our street. And I think it would be something like Novell or Laverne or Lovell or something like that. And then he looks. I mean, he can barely see it because it's dark. And then he gets to the hotel, and they're waiting for him, and they help him right away, and they're kind as hell. And they get him to his room. I think it would be something like 114 or 116. And they have a maintenance man carry the luggage for him. Yeah. Because the bellman is out sick. And he gets into the hotel. And he looks at the to-go menu, and then what he decides, because he's hungry again, It's like it's 10 minutes before midnight. Yeah. Or in fact, it might be a little after midnight. There's this one place. It's kind of like I want to say knockoff, but it's not knockoff. Wouldn't be a very good term. But it's similar to IHOP and Denny's. It's called, it would probably be a place called something like All Foods Masters. Pancakes, lunch, and dinner. And what he does is he goes in, and they're, because they're open 24 hours a day. And he puts up some, he puts in some, what would I say that for? That's not very good. He sits at a table, he looks at the menu. He decides to get a hot pastrami sandwich with Swiss cheese and a little bit of a reddish orange sauce that looks like Thousand Island dressing, but it's not. It's one of those secret sauces. It tastes really good. And instead of onion rings or French fries or crinkle fries, he gets I think it would be called salt and vinegar potato chips. Excuse me, my cat's next to me and she's shedding. And he eats that, and he just has a glass of water with it. And that's gonna set him back about $11. $11 in 1992 was pretty expensive. And he tips him $2, and he pays for the bill with his Visa card. And he walks back to the hotel. He watches TV for a little bit, and then he dozes off about like this, and then he's like, it's time to get into my bathrobe and just crash. So he opens up his suitcase, and the bathrobe's there. And the one thing he's a little bit PO'd about was the way the toothpaste looked. It didn't open up, and it didn't have any holes in it. But when he takes up, poof, a little bit of toothpaste comes out. I think it had something to do with the how high up, and something about being in the airplane caused it. And he just cleans up, washes off his hands, and before he goes to sleep, he says a couple of prayers to the Lord. He turns off the lamp that's next to him. It's mounted on the wall, and he just really goes to sleep. And he sleeps from, I think it would be about 1:20, somewhere between 1:20 and 1:28 a.m. Pacific time until 11:30 Pacific time. And he wakes up, and he's just feeling really groggy and stiff. And then he hears this on the door. And what it is it's the housekeeping people. He says, no, please don't do that right now. He says, I gotta get ready to go. I'm gonna go out for breakfast. And he goes to a place that is only open between about 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. It's called LA Den Breakfast Nook or something like that. And it's got this two-tone look on the outside of it, where one half of the building is like this light green turquoise color, and the other side is this bright yellow. I mean, it's almost like a dark yellow. It's not gold, but it's somewhere between a dark yellow and almost gold color look. And he sits down, and there's this the waitress that helps him is nice. She can speak English pretty well, but she's got on a dress where she looks like she's from Holland or from Switzerland. I shouldn't laugh about that, but I just can't help it. And she's got these really thick eyelashes. I mean, they look like they're almost that thick. Well, not that thick, but at least that thick. Oh yeah. And she's got this purple lipstick on. And she's got really nice bright blue eyes. And she is boom. I mean, she's built. She's quite busty. And he decides on some Belgian waffles, chicken breakfast sausage links, and some over easy eggs. Yeah. And he drinks some dark roast coffee that, I mean, when he puts a little bit of cream and a little bit of sugar in there, ooh, it makes it vibrant. I mean, it burns his throat and it makes him make this whoa sound. I mean, I made that sound because, with the tracheotomy, it'll do that to me. So he puts one more of those little things of coffee cream in there, and he stirs it, and that's not quite enough. I mean, it's got this nice nutty taste to it, but it's really strong. So he puts a third one in, and he puts one more packet of sugar and a little touch of honey, and he stirs it real good before he drinks it. And he drinks that, he's like, man, that's one of the best cups of coffee I've had in over 5 years. Holy cow. And the waitress brings out the food, and she's like really nice to him. She's got this beautiful smile. And he really chomps away at it. I mean, he's just having some fun. I mean, normally he wouldn't act like this. He's a reserved man that wouldn't eat, that does not like to eat too fast because his parents warned him hundreds of times when he was a little kid. And she says, "Oh my gosh, you must have been really hungry." And then she asks, "Are you visiting from outside the United States?" And he says, "No." He says, You're from the United States? I'm sorry, I should have thought of that. He said, yeah, Midwest. The Rockies. He says, you're from Denver? He says, yeah, how did you know? Oh, nothing. When you said Rockies, I figured it was Denver, and you kind of got that Denver look. And they just keep talking until the cook goes ding 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 ding, and has her pick up an order. And then he says, these waffles are really good. He says, may I have some more? And she says, sure, but you do know that's going to cost you an extra $4.50. He says, I don't care, I can afford it. He says, okay. So she makes him some more waffles. So she puts in the order for some more waffles. And and he eats that. And then he goes back to his hotel room, and he starts looking into things, because you see, this was when really before we had the internet, and a lot of people were calling it information superhighway. So he starts looking in some tourist books that are inside the hotel room. And then he thought about it, and then he thought to himself, he's like, you know what? I've never been to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I'm going to take a cab ride over there, and I'm going to start walking around there. Yeah. And he takes a cab ride that's, probably about $8 or $9 is the best guess I can make. And he starts out from about the 7,000 block, and he keeps walking this way, and walking until he gets about to the 5,700 block. And then he turns, and then on the other side he just keeps walking. One of the things I think he decides on doing is he goes into the DOWNY'S Chinese theater, and he says, I'm here on vacation. He says, I don't want to see a movie, but may I walk around? He says, yes, you can only walk around this area and this area, and please don't go into any of the theaters, or you'll be asked to leave. And he just walks around back and forth. And then the concession crew member says, sir, we do, if you look over here, we have some postcards for sale that are only 50 cents per postcard. So he looks, and then he says that, and he points down at the display for the candies, and he says, could I have some of those? He says, can I have some of those Milk Duds? And she says, yes, sure. We'll be happy to sell you one of those. So he gets one of those, and he pops a few of those, and he just keeps walking around. And I think one of the streets that he walks down, he goes, if it's not west, it's east, or vice versa. I believe it's a street called Sycamore. Yeah. He just keeps walking down there for several blocks until he gets to about 8 blocks west. he gets out his cell phone and he calls the taxi cab company, and he has them give him a ride back to the hotel. And then he looks through the tourist books again. And one of the things he decides to go ahead and do and he's mostly a non-smoker, but the one thing he decides to do is he gets two different buses, and he goes to a tobacco shop. It's not in existence anymore. It closed down somewhere between 2006 and about 2010. That would be about 3 blocks from Rodeo Drive. And it's a cigar that's roughly about that long. And he buys, spending at least $12, a Davidoff cigar. Yeah. And after he smokes that baby, oh boys, he got a big buzz. He feels kind of dizzy. So he keeps walking along, and he goes into a neat. It's not hole in the wall like it's crappy. Hole in the wall like it's old-fashioned and simple. He goes into a burger joint where he gets a huge. This isn't a double burger. It's a single. He gets a burger called the Maximum. And this thing is, and I kid you not, 3/4 of a pound. And it's got lettuce, tomato, ketchup, mustard, and some sauteed onions on it. And he also buys a one of those, I think it's pronounced jarrito, Mandara orange soda pops. And after he eats that cheeseburger, he is stuffed. And he gets a hotel, or he gets a taxi cab ride back to the hotel. And around 9 o'clock, he's like, I'm wiped out. I need to crash. And he gets into his bathrobe, and he gets into bed, and he crashes, and he sleeps until about 7 in the morning. And then he goes to another place that would be called something like DOWNY'S Diner of Hollywood. And it's not spelled D-O-W-N-E-Y. It's spelled D-O-W-N-Y. Or D-O-W-N-Y''S. And he has a breakfast burrito that was one of the best he ever had. It's got eggs, bell pepper, a little bit of breakfast sausage, a little bit of bacon, cheddar cheese, and Vermont, it's a white Vermont cheese. And he drinks some good medium roast donut shop. They called it donut shop coffee. It wasn't the best he was ever had, but it was definitely good enough. It didn't taste like crap. It had an interesting old school taste to it, or old style taste to it. And he just keeps walking around and walking around and walking around. So what happens the next day after that is he goes to Universal Studios and does the Universal Studios tour. He spends at least 6 hours there, just walking around seeing all kinds of stuff. And then the next day after that, this would be roughly day 4. He goes to Disneyland. And I tell you, it cost probably at least $65 to $70 for a one-day pass. And he does so much walking around, and he buys so many souvenirs, that overall he spends at least $135. And then the next day after that, he gets in a train, and he does a Hollywood tour. This is roughly day 5. And then on day 6, he does a tour of Warner Brothers Studios. And on day 7, that's the day he's supposed to go back. He gets up around 8:30, 9 o'clock. He goes to a ocean nearby, and he gets a special, I think it would be either a showboat ride or a ferry boat ride, where they tour around the coastal area for a couple hours, and then he comes back. And then he gets, and he pays on, and this one's fairly cheap. He only pays about $20 for this. He comes back and he eats something because, man, he is hungry as hell. And then he gets a ride back to the hotel. And he starts packing up. And he pays, because see, he already prearranged the package deal, flight and hotel. And the amount of monies that he has to pay to the hotel is roughly about $18. And then he gets a, he's starting to learn the ins and outs in the system, how it's best to do things to one's advantage. He pays an inexpensive company. I think it would be LA Airport Shuttle, or LA Ports Airport Shuttle. It's a van. And for about $14 he pays in cold hard cash. He gets a ride to LAX. He checks in with America West Airlines. minutes. 55 minutes before the plane's supposed to take off. He buys a couple of snacks. And the flight that's going to take off, roughly about 5:45, 6 o'clock Pacific time. He goes, he gets a few snacks at the one of the stops, places that would be like a gift shop or convenience store, traveler's convenience store, whatever. And he stands over. He starts waiting at a time that he knows he's supposed to start waiting. And he's in group, instead of group 3, he's in group 5. And when group 5 is called forward to stand in line, or groups 4 and 5, he gets in line. And he's got his duffel bag with him, like when he left Stapleton Airport. He gets on the plane. And they offer to give him a salad and a little snack and a soft drink. And then he gets into Stapleton Airport at 9:36 p.m. Mountain Time. And he goes to get his luggage. And he goes to where he's supposed to go to get the 73. And the 73 frickin' did it again. They were supposed to be leaving, meaning the Route 73 RTD bus, at 10:25 p.m. But they don't leave until 10:38 p.m. I may be mistaken, but I think that's about 14 minutes late. Rough ballpark estimate. So he gets on, and there's a I mean, that thing is really jam-packed. And he doesn't bother to sit anywhere. He holds onto the rail up here. And he just really, I mean, when the bus comes to stop, he goes like this so that he doesn't bump into somebody and somebody doesn't get ticked off and starts cussing him out or worse. And he gets to the stop that is near his apartment. Somewhere between 11:13 and 11:16 p.m. Yeah. He opens up his mailbox, and there's only 3 items, because see, he put everything on hold. And one of them is a little note stating that there's a package, and there is also and that he must come to pick up his mail. And he's thinking to himself, well, way too late to do it tonight. So there we have it. He gets into his apartment. I think it would be apartment like 203 or 205 on the second level. On the second floor. And everything's intact. And the light fixture in the bathroom was replaced. And there is a maintenance order that states that the reason why was because it started blowing out. The socket. Not the light bulb, the socket. And he plays his answering machine, and there's only 3 messages, and one of the messages was from his friend Andy. One of them was a message from his mother, who, they remain in Fort Collins, and she's telling him about how Dad's going to be coming. Actually, I take it back, there's 4. And then there is a message from the Denver Public Library nearby. I don't know for absolute sure which one that would be, but I personally assume it might be Hamden Branch. On Hamden and Gerard, on Gerard and South Dayton. That a thing that was finally placed on hold that he got through interlibrary loan. It was a nice VHS tape of a movie he'd been looking for 3 months. And the 4th message oh boy. That one really gave me the that one really makes somebody feel creepy and give them the heebie-jeebies. There's this guy going, ugh, 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 ah, 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 ugh. And then goes, and then he hangs up the phone. It's because he got sick. He was really drunk when he did that, and he dialed the wrong number. Yeah, it wasn't somebody who was angry with Dirk, who was pulling a prank on him. It was some guy who was heavily intoxicated, who probably called from a payphone, because they had more payphones back then, and did that to him just because he felt like pulling a prank. I'm sorry, whoever that was, that's really a bad thing to do. Bad, bad, bad. Okay, so after he puts away a little bit of luggage, not everything but a lot, and he puts all the shaving stuff back in the bathroom, he feels an urge to eat something because he's like really got his stomach's really growling all of a sudden. He goes into the freezer And he takes out one of those Hot Pockets. It's ham and cheese. He pops one of those in the microwave. He eats it. He turns on the TV just for the heck of it. He flips through some channels on because he's got. That was back when Mile High Cable was. Mile High Cable before it got taken over by. I think AT&T, and then it got taken over by Comcast, and now it's Comcast Xfinity. Yeah. And one of the things that he sees is a woman in a yellow dress, and she's in this sleazy hotel, and she's curled up in a corner of the wall, where two walls meet, about like this, and she really starts crying frantically, and finally he just turns off the cable box, and he turns off the TV system, and forgive me for using this type of language, and he's like, oh God, I don't want to hear this shit. He turns on the stereo. He goes through the dials and listens to a couple of rock songs, and then really starts yawning. And he turns off the stereo. He crawls into bed and he goes to sleep. And he thought to himself, he kind of mumbled to himself, well, that was one hell of a vacation and a very nice experience, but I'm home now and it's time to get back to daily life, and my life must go on. And he slept in just his undies, and he wakes up at about roughly a little after 9:30, about 9:45 approximately. He gets up and he makes some breakfast, makes a pot of coffee on a 4-cup coffee maker, and after he makes breakfast, he showers and shaves, and and then he gets in his car. His car starts just fine, and the weather's warmer than when he left. It's in the high 50s, low 60s, but he brought a coat along just as a precaution, because you just never know. And he gets over to the post office, and he gets some stuff. One of the things, what the package was a care package from his grandmother. Inside the package was, I think they made these back then. It was It was Senate bean soup, 2 cans, and it was some candy, some English toffee candies you could only get in England. Yep. And there was a 3 or 4 blade, a 3-pack of 3 or 4 blade razors for the face. And there was a bottle of, I think it's called Dakota cologne. And there was a couple of, no, 3 different kitchen towels. And there was also an envelope that had 2 10s, 1 $5 bill, and 3 $1 bills, and a 50 and a half JFK $half. Yep. And you know, he looked through this in the car. Then he thought, "Oh God, I gotta get to the library." So he goes to hand and branch. He tells the librarian what he's looking for, and he displays his library card. They hand him the VHS tape. What the VHS tape is, and it's on VHS, again on VHS, it's Sherlock Holmes Goes to Washington, D.C., or Sherlock Holmes Goes to Washington. I've seen the movie about at least 4 times. The movie came out in 1943. I mean, that's really an oldie. It's in black and white. It's with Nigel, Bruce, and Basil Rathbone. Good movie. Very good movie. I've seen it. Well, I think I've done quite a lot of explaining here. And Dirk is an interesting individual, but it's time for me to go. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this really, really long YouTube vlog, and goodbye.